Today we're going to work on solving inequalities that have one variable. The last couple of days we've been solving equations, and equations are sentences, mathematical sentences, where one side is equal to the other. An inequality, though, is a mathematical sentence that compares one side to the other, and the sides are one side is either less than or equal to the other side, or it could be greater than or greater than and equal to the other side. So it's comparing the two sides, but they're no longer equal. A solution to an inequality is any value that makes the inequality true. So it's any value, and there can be many solutions. So looking at number 1 and number 2, there can be many more than just two solutions, but pick two solutions that are greater than 4. Not equal to 4, that's just a greater than sign. So I'm going to pick 6 and 31. Those are both numbers greater than 4. Most likely those are not the two numbers you picked. As long as it's greater than 4, it is a solution. Now we need to pick numbers that are less than -3. So be careful and remember your number line and write down two numbers that are less than -3. I'm going to pick -218, and I'm going to pick -1356 because both of those numbers are less than -3. Okay, so when we're looking at the steps for solving inequalities, you'll notice that we're dealing with pretty much the same steps that we were dealing with in solving an equation. The only thing that we add when we're solving inequalities is down here at the bottom with the little flip-flops. When you're solving inequalities, there's a rule, it's called the flip-flop rule, that says whenever you multiply or divide. So in the end, when we're isolating and we either multiply or divide by a negative number, we have to flip-flop our inequality sign. That is the only difference. So a lot of times students get confused and say, I don't know what to do, it's an inequality. Consider the same exact steps as an equation, unless that one flip-flop rule comes up and you're multiplying or dividing by a negative number. Otherwise, it's the exact same. Okay, so based on that, let's go ahead and solve number 3. I want you to use the steps on number 3 and solve it just like you already know. So we have nothing to distribute, but we do have some like terms to combine. We have a +6 and a -9. So +6 and -9, they combine to a -3 plus u is less than -2. Okay, and then as we're looking at it, we've simplified. Now we have to collect our variables on one side. Well, the u's already over on one side by itself. So all we have to do is isolate it. So we isolate by adding and subtracting, and then by multiplying and dividing. So when we're adding, I'm going to go ahead and draw my line. It's just drawing down the inequality instead of the equation. And I'm going to say the inverse operation to -3 or -3 is +3. So I'm going to do +3 on both sides. My 3's cancel out, and I have u is less than -2 plus 3, which is 1. Now there's nothing to divide. My u's already done, so nothing to flip-flop, nothing. That's my answer. Okay, on number 4, you're going to have to also do step 1, which is distribution. So go ahead. I want you to do this one on your own and pause your video to do your work and then check back to see the answer and explanation. The biggest thing to keep in mind on number 4 is when you are adding two numbers where their signs are alike, in this case both negatives, you add the numbers together and keep the negative sign. And then also the multiplication triangle. You're dividing a negative by a positive, it stays a negative number. Now, Over here, we were dividing. The number we're dividing by on this bottom row is positive, so we don't do anything to our inequality sign. Okay, on number 5, before you get going, I want you to start by clearing out the fraction. And when you clear out that fraction, you're going to be multiplying by that denominator, which is a negative number. So the flip-flop rule comes into play right at the beginning because you are multiplying by a negative number. So go ahead and give it a try, pause your video, and then come back and check your answer. Okay, so on number 5, just notice the effect of multiplying both sides by -2 flipped our inequality sign around to a less than sign. Okay, so on number 6, go ahead and I want you to work number 6 on your own, pause your video, and then check back for the answer. Okay, when you look at your answer on number 6 and compare it, only step we had to do was we divided both sides by a -7. So when we divided, that had us flip our inequality. So we flipped from a greater than to a less than. But notice our answer is written 2 is less than y. In math, answers are always starting with the variable. So you're going to have to rotate this entire equation around. And the biggest trick when you're rotating is notice that our y, our inequality, the open side is facing the y. When we rotate this around, the open part of our inequality, the greater than, still has to face the y. That's the only trick to this one. Okay, so go ahead and solve number 7, pause your video, and check back. The only thing to notice on number 7 is we divided by a positive number, so nothing happened to our inequality. That's the end of part 1. Check part 2 to finish up the notes.